Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have Michael Cohen back with us today. We'll chat with Michael in just a second, but first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So, Michael Cohen is the former personal attorney for Donald Trump and served for years as an executive in the Trump Organization. He is host of the YouTube channel The Michael Cohen Show, host of the Mea Culpa with Michael Cohen podcast, and co-host of the podcast Political Beatdown with Michael Cohen and Ben Meiselas. He's also a two-time New York Times bestselling author. His latest book is Revenge, How Donald Trump Weaponized the U.S. Department of Justice Against His Critics. And you can also find him on Substack at The Real Michael Cohen, where he writes the newsletter, Truth and Consequences. Michael, welcome back into the back room.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Andy. Good to see you, my brother. What are we cooking? Is that the kitchen in the back over there?
This is where we cook up everything good in the back room.
I'm loving it, loving it.
So let's talk about the Epstein shitstorm, because this particular situation has the potential, and keyword potential, to be driving a wedge through MAGA in a way that we've never seen before. So tell me your thoughts on what you.
Why are you saying this to Jeffrey Epstein? It's bullshit. It's just bullshit.
Stop talking about it.
It's a hoax. It's like Russia. It's all part of the hoax.
Well, did you see what he said this morning?
I did.
So now it's a Democrat hoax, which is the most ridiculous spin you could possibly put on something.
Yeah, it's probably not one of his better ones that's out there. In fact, somewhat disappointed with the folks that are surrounding him, simply because all you need to do is, and Midas Touch Network has done it, and I know Lincoln's done it, and I know you've done it. They put together clips. MSNBC did one where they put together clips of all of the various people coming out and basically attacking Democrats, saying that this was all put on by, Kash Patel did it, Pam Bondi did it, obviously Steve Bannon did it, Dan Bongino did it, Tucker Carlson did it, all blaming the Democrats for being involved in this child sex trafficking, Pizzagate type of a scandal. Well, now it's funny because it's the Democrats like a Jamie Raskin and others who are coming out and saying, just release the files.
Right.
Let us see the files. Let's not argue about what's inside of it. Let's first turn around and argue about whether it's going to be released to us unredacted so we can actually read it.
This particular situation seems to be traveling through the MAGA sphere like no other situation we've seen before. What do you think it is about this particular crisis? I'll call it a crisis because that's what it seems to be. They're not upset about tariffs. They're not upset about the Iran bombings. They're not upset about all the 50,000 other lies. This is the thing that's getting their panties in a snit. Why do you think that is? Why does this situation have the potential to be that wedge through MAGA?
So, in fact, I actually wrote my Substack on it this morning, which I called The Coup MAGA Didn't See Coming. And to answer your question, which is a great layup for my Substack, I started off, they call it loyalty. They tattooed they tattooed Trump's face on their arms and on their calves. They fly Trump one flags on their lawns and they chant, save the children, like it's scripture. But what happens when the people who wrap themselves in that loyalty like a flag start to realize that they've been had? Not by the so-called deep state, not by Democrats, but by the very right-wing heroes that they worshiped. What happens when the betrayal comes from inside of the house? That's why they're so pissed. And I start off the Substack by saying, let's start, right? House Republicans went ahead and they blocked, again, the release of the Epstein files, the very documents that could finally give the public the answers, right, about who was involved in the largest child sex trafficking conspiracy of all time. And they didn't do it quietly, right? They did it like they were covering for someone, because maybe, and in their minds, just maybe, they are.
Yeah, but I want to press you a little bit further on this, because we've seen Donald Trump backtrack on lots of promises, lots of campaign promises. He's always able to come up with an excuse, a lie, a spin, and they buy it. This time, we're seeing things be a little different. They're not buying it. They're angry. So I'm trying to understand what goes to the heart of MAGAville that somehow is making this the thing that is enraging them.
Because it's a gut punch of betrayal and disloyalty. It's hitting them hard, not just for the left, not just for the moderates, but deep in the heart of the right-wing MAGA. The very people who saw themselves as warriors against elite evil, against the Democrats, they are realizing that the people that they trusted, the Bannonites, the Carlson cultists, the flamethrowers of the right, the Bonginos, may have lied to them. And worse, that they may themselves now be part of the cover-up. That's the reason.
Yeah. One of the reasons I love talking with you so much is because you spent a decade or more on the inside. You worked side by side with him. You know him better than...
Decade and a half.
Yeah. You know him better than perhaps most people. What makes him tick, why he does and says the things he does. And so in this particular situation, we know that MAGA is rooted in conspiracy, whether it's Obama's birth certificate or it's a rigged election, or in this case, the Epstein files. Knowing him as you do, let me present a scenario. Let's say in that scenario, he's completely innocent. There's nothing in those Epstein files about him.
Can I turn around? Let me be very clear about this as well. I've been on MSNBC. I've been on my own Substack. I've been on my Mea Culpa podcast, my YouTube channel, everywhere. Let me be very clear. I truly do not believe. Now, remember, the relationship with Epstein and Trump started in the late 80s, like 1988. I just finished college in 88. And it was sort of at its peak, according to Michael Wolff, who I have on my Mea Culpa podcast this Friday. By that time, 1991, 1992, I was just admitted to the New York State Bar. I went to law school, finished 91, 92, I was admitted. I was not in the Trump orbit at that time. However, from the 2005 all the way to the 2018 time period that I was affiliated to Trump in some way, shape, or form, 2007 full time in the office, only 30, 40 feet from him. I never saw Jeffrey Epstein once in the office. I never heard his name come out of Trump's mouth. I never heard them on the telephone at all. He was a non-existent entity as it related to Trump. I also don't believe that Trump is part of this sort of child sex relationship. Now, I'm not going to dispute any of the allegations that are brought by these young women. Who am I to do such a thing? Nobody. I'm just saying, knowing Trump as I do, he's not a comfortable guy in his own skin. And I speak really from experience in that. This isn't the guy that's going to go ahead and go to a massage parlor. Not a guy who's going to turn around right into one of those, sort of, who is the Bob Kraft sort of, right, massage parlors. Trump's not that comfortable in his own sexual skin. So I truly do not believe that he was involved in this. So the question is, who are they covering up for?
Well, this is where I want to get back to my scenario. And by the way, the phrase Trump's sexual skin makes me want to vomit. But here's my scenario. Let's assume you're correct. Let's assume he personally has nothing to do with the sex trafficking, the sex with underage girls. Let's assume, as he's been spewing for years, as Bondi and Bongino and Patel and others have been spewing, that it is these elite, rich, powerful Democrats, the deep state. What I'm trying to understand, if that scenario exists, knowing how vindictive he is, knowing how small, how petty, how vindictive, how much he would love to ram this down the throats of every one of those perverts. Why not release this shit?
Because clearly the information that they thought that they were spewing is not the information that exists. And most probably, what does exist is information, names, and so on people who are more to the right, including now some of these MAGA mega donors.
Right.
I also just wanted to touch on something that furthers an answer to a question that you previously asked. As to why this is really hitting MAGA so hard, because I actually have a full paragraph on it, short, but it's extremely important. If you understand MAGA, you would understand that they didn't just vote for Trump. They believe in Trump. Many of them gave up family, friends, lost jobs, everything.
Like in any cult.
Yes, all for the cause. And now they're sitting there, right? They're like wondering, were we just pawns in someone else's game?
Mm-hmm.
In someone else's lies? Does this group think that we're stupid? Right? Because one of the things that Mike Wolf and I talk about extensively in the upcoming podcast on Friday is that what's going on right now with the Steve Bannons, the Tucker Carlsons, the Dan Bonginos, and all of these others that are going to these town halls and they are shredding into Trump and the administration and demanding for the release of all of this information and so on. The two of us, more Mike Wolf, put into my mind that this is not just a scandal. What it actually is a hostile takeover in progress. It is a coup from within, right? Because people like Steve Bannon never accepted being in second place, not to Trump, not to anyone, right? In his mind, he calls himself the architect of the revolution. He believes that he's the one that pulled the strings, that he's the one that lit the fires, that he's the one that stoked the rage that got Trump elected, not once, but twice. And he thinks of Trump as just being a showman. And he believes that while Trump is the showman, that he is the script writer of the show. And now, in the Epstein silence, the son of a bitch sees an opening. And the funny thing is that he's not hiding it. They go out and make public appearances, these podcast sermons. Bannon is speaking, as I wrote, with the confidence of a man already redecorating the future. He's the man that's measuring the Oval Office curtains in his imagination, fantasizing about populist purity and America First regime with him at the ideological center. Because he doesn't want to drain the swamp. What he wants to do, he wants to rule over it like a philosopher despot. And Tucker Carlson, he's no different. They all see themselves as the next progression. Let's take away from Trump what he would ultimately have at the end of his term, which is the ability to anoint the next person. They know, Andy, and they know damn well from history that when you have a president, a Senate, and a House that are all of the same party, that generally the party loses both the House and the Senate, but definitively the House. And the margins right now are razor thin with the numbers, right, so skewed in favor of Democrats that Republicans are now gerrymandering different areas like Texas and New York to try to hold on to some seats. So while they understand that if and when Trump loses the House or the Senate in 2026, that he will ultimately become, either of the two does this, he becomes a lame duck president. Nothing's going to happen for the next 2 years after that. They are already looking to place themselves in the position of power. And that's why I called the article, right? It's the coup from within.
Yeah, well, Bannon says this EpsteinGate thing can cost them up to 40 or more seats in the midterm elections. But, Michelle Goldberg has written a piece in the New York Times today, which really gets to the heart of the matter. And it goes back to what propelled Trump into politics and into the White House in the first place. And it is all this QAnon bullshit. The craziest, you mentioned Pizzagate, JFK Jr., all this nonsense, which the crazies believe. That's why they exist. That's why they're there today. And then, when you try to figure out what is happening here with this Epstein situation, it's like they created this beast. They have fed this beast. And now this beast is devouring them.
What's driving them insane is the betrayal. These people believed, they were sold a bill of goods, that they were fighting evil, all right? And they took on that cause. And now they are staring evil in the face. And they're realizing that the evil is wearing the same red fucking MAGA hat that they are.
Well, I'm not sure they're quite there yet.
I'm saying that they are quite there.
What they're definitely doing right now is questioning why he won't take evil down. And if he doesn't, maybe it's him. That's where I think there's an extra little step.
It's not about Trump. It's not about Trump. It's about the institution of MAGA. This isn't about an individual. And I say that because, again, this is a war within. And it's like, as I described it, it's a palace coup, all right? And the walls in the palace are crumbling. I turn around and I actually wrote that, in the insurgents, they're not hiding in the shadow. When you have people who are speaking to millions and millions and millions, people like Bongino, people like Steve Bannon, people like Tucker Carlson, they are people who have a massive voice within this MAGA movement. They're not hiding in the shadows anymore. They are broadcasting from studios. They're podcasting from bunkers. They're delivering these sermons to tens of millions of these MAGA supporters. And what they've done is they have stopped pretending to support Trump's leadership. Now they want to replace it. They want to replace it with themselves. It's why I keep referring to it as a palace coup.
Well, that's interesting.
And in the interim, they don't give a flying shit who's going to get burned along the way. They don't care about the movement. They don't care about the MAGA voters. They don't care about the children who are supposed to be at the center of all of this righteous fury. To them, they see MAGA as a vehicle, and a vehicle that they're hot wiring. So and those people who don't think that this coup is coming, I'm turning around telling you, it's not coming. It's here.
Well, that's interesting that you raised that point, because I haven't really heard that, but it makes sense because
I saved it for you, Andy. And now all of a sudden you're going to hear everybody start talking about it. These guys are trying to overthrow MAGA for themselves.
Well, let's stick with that for a second. So the quote-unquote civil war that we've been hearing about in the last week has largely been referred to as coming from the MAGA base. Like, the MAGA base is very upset. We've seen a little bit from like Charlie Kirk and Laura Ingraham and others. But Charlie Kirk, first he said at his Turning Point conference last week, oh, I got to be critical of this. This is bullshit. And then Trump put out his infamous middle of the night rant that you guys need to all shut the fuck up. And then Charlie Kirk, like the next day, was like, hey, I'm done with Epstein, right? And then something happened 24 hours later, and Charlie Kirk's like, I didn't mean I'm done with Epstein. I mean, I was done with Epstein for that day. I was taking like a break for Monday. What do you think happened? Because Daddy spoke, he listened, and then something else happened where he was like, you know what? I'm going back to my critical mode. I'm not sure what it is. It was a sign of something.
So what ultimately happened is either somebody, or maybe Trump even himself, reached out to Charlie Kirk and told him to knock this bullshit off. Okay? Knock it off right fucking now. And so he did.
Yes.
Then, as soon as he pulled back, forces like a Steve Bannon, forces like Tucker Carlson, forces like even maybe a Laura Ingraham and others that were there, turning around and saying, you're playing the wrong card. Since we're going to use a Trumpism, all right? You're playing the wrong side. He's losing the midterms, whether you like it or not. If you want to play the short game, you stay on that side of the fence. You're going long game, you go with us. You follow us into where we're going with this. And where we're going with it is we're taking over the movement. Why? Because the movement belongs to us. We created the movement, not him. He's just the face of it, but we created it. So either you're with us or you're not. Then all of a sudden, Charlie Kirk is saying, well, you know what? I can kind of, him and a haw while this is going on short term and then still be in the camp with the Bannons, the Tucker Carlsons, the Bonginos, and so on. And, now play the long game with them too. So he gets his cake and he gets to eat it too.
Well, I love this palace intrigue scenario that you're raising because it makes a lot of sense on many levels at the same time that the base is enraged. In his pathetic defense of all this, because Trump seems like he's flailing. He doesn't know how to handle this. So now, not only is he saying that this is a Democratic hoax, but in the last few days, he's referred to his base as bad people. He's referred to his base as selfish. So he's like doubling and tripling down by telling these people, if you are angry, you're selfish, you're bad, you're so stupid, you're anti-MAGA. And I think that's making them even more enraged.
It is. And Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson and others, they understand that. They understand it very well, and they are playing on it. And so what does Trump do? He goes on and he talks about things like the Steele dossier, something that MAGA will turn around, and it shouldn't be MAGA, it should be everyone, not just in this country, but the world, that the Steele dossier was bullshit. So he's trying to draw people back off of something that has taken place in the past that people know or believe him to be right about. And so he thinks that that's going to be enough to convince them. It would be, by the way. Trump has demonstrated this over and over and over again now for over 8 years. So don't rule him out. However, where he would normally have gotten away with this spin, with the weave, so to speak, of the factually accurate, the Steele dossier, Russia being a hoax, where he's gotten away with it, he's not now, not because he has lost his ability to communicate that way, but because you have equal and opposite forces within the same group that are actually countering his own narrative. And they're making the MAGA base wonder and regret following the words of Trump, especially when people like the Bannons and the Carlsons are telling the MAGA people that Trump is looking at you as if you are stupid.
Yeah. And when you think about the MAGA media ecosystem, Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, Andrew Schultz, Laura Ingraham, they influence a lot of people. They influence young men. And so, to your point, the things we've traditionally understood about Trump is that every time he opens his mouth, it's either confession or projection, number one. Number two, he is a master of deflection.
The commentary on this is a hoax being perpetuated or perpetrated by Obama, by the Biden administration, by James Comey. Better off, he should have just left it to James Comey, because people on both sides of the aisle hate James Comey. He's a fucking prick, right? I mean, he is just what he is. Leave it at that. You're not going to turn around and try to make it seem as if Barack Obama somehow, despite the fact that preceded the entire investigation, right? Obama wasn't president when any of this shit was going on. So what would Obama's ability to be able to manipulate information or documentation on this Epstein file, where does that even come from? It's preposterous. Now, you want to throw Joe Biden in onto it because Epstein, he committed suicide while I think Biden was president, or part of the investigation was taking place. Sure, throw that in. But when you start adding all of this stuff in and it doesn't make any sense, even to the MAGA stupid that Trump is referring to, that's the part that is insulting. That's the part that gets them to break away from that loyalty that this cult has been demonstrating to him for so long.
Yeah, because right now he's so scared and desperate that what he's essentially saying, what they are essentially saying to MAGA is this conspiracy we told you existed, this deep state cabal of rich, powerful, perverted Democrats that we just drilled into your heads existed, and we're going to take care of them. The Epstein files, it doesn't exist. However, it was created by Obama and by the thing we just told you doesn't exist,
right,
was created by. So that makes zero sense.
Because the smart move here, Andy, would have been to release the files. And again, I am pretty freaking certain, knowing the guy better than anybody, I am certain that there is nothing in there which is damaging to him. I'm certain about it. It's not who he is. He's not, I have friends, and I'm sure you do too, who are just sexually perverted, right? Let me just give you sort of
I don't know anyone like that, Michael Cohen.
Bullshit. I ain't buying it. So, if they had 3 women on their laps, right, they would be thinking about bedding all 3 of them at the same time. I mean, they're wild men, in their older age. They were wild when they were young. They're wilder now that they're, older like us. Trump doesn't think that way. The way that he's thinking by having these 3 women on his lap is that I have 3 women sitting on my lap. Everybody loves Trump. It's about ego. And Andy, you have no one on your lap. So look at me. I'm better than you. I'm more desired than you. It is a transaction. It is all about ego. It goes back to the same scenario like with Stormy Daniels. How did he end up with Stormy Daniels? Why did he even end up with Stormy Daniels? And the reason, it was a bet. It was a competition between him and Big Ben Roethlisberger. Ben made a comment about, wouldn't it be great to get, hey, let's see who can sort of do it. And it became a competition. You understand? It wasn't like he turned around, he saw Stormy and said, oh, yeah, I have to have her. I have friends that would be like, yeah, she's a porn star. I definitely want to be with her, right? And they go after her because of who she is. No, this was a competition. Trump is sexually transactional.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here and speak for the 85 million voices I know are screaming the following question at you. Okay, so just play along with me here. We have a guy who's an adjudicated sexual abuser. We have someone who is on tape saying, hey, I walk into the dressing room of underage models at my pageants. We have someone who has made, I've got 3 daughters. The way he talks about Ivanka over the years is kind of crazy.
Can we do them one at a time? Because each one has an important point that has to be made. And I don't want to sort of lose the thought onto it. When you start talking about him being able to walk in into the pageants and so on, nobody ever corroborated that story. And I'm going to call bullshit on that story. Why will I do such a thing? Not to protect him, to tell you, I've been in the back when these pageants were going on. There were 3 members of the board for Miss Universe: Donald Trump, Alan Weisselberg, and me. 3 convicted felons, by the way. All right. I mean, it goes to tell you a lot. But mind you,
You guys should start a band.
we should, right? To call it convicted. Probably it already exists. Meanwhile, so I was back there. I never saw anybody changing. Not once. I never saw anybody with their clothes off. Whoever validated that story, I believe, was made up to sort of make you feel jealous that he could walk back there because these women happen to be stunning.
But that's a pretty sick thought that somebody
I'm not saying it's a rational thought. I am just telling you all of this is ego driven. I get to go back there. I own the pageant. I saw Miss Universe with her clothes off. Who gives a shit anyway?
All right. How do you explain away the E. Jean Carroll thing?
I don't. That's the only one. That's the only one that I can't.
Or if she wasn't my daughter, I'd be.
What he was trying to say is like, look, even my spawn is so phenomenal, but she's great because it's mine, right? A lot of the stuff can be explained by ego, right? And that's the point that I'm trying to make. So I understand everybody's, their positions, because it's a grotesque statement to talk about your own daughter that way. It's a grotesque scenario where somebody's in a dressing room and changing, right? And that I can't argue. A judge found that, to be credible. I don't take away anything from how difficult it must have been for E. Jean Carroll to go through all of that. But that's the only one that I cannot explain. It just doesn't it doesn't fall in line with all of the other stuff.
So let me circle back to a question I asked you earlier, because this is really at the crux of what both Democrats and MAGA are questioning. And that is, if he had the goods on the deep state, if he could bring down all these rich, powerful people who he's been threatening to lock up for years, and he could make MAGA happy, make them love him instead of having them revolt, why the fuck wouldn't he do that?
So I can not give you an answer to that because it doesn't make any sense at all. Obviously.
Well, it certainly raises a lot of questions.
It does. As Hakeem Jeffries turned around and made the arguments, only one of 2 possibilities, and he wasn't wrong about that, Captain Obvious. But I have a more intriguing question than that, because all of us, right, are Captain Obvious in this. It's either what he was saying is a lie, or it implicates people that he needs to protect, which could possibly include himself. I don't think so, but could possibly include himself. Here's the question that I would like to alter. Why didn't the Republicans get on board during that congressional committee and turn around and say, we want the files unredacted on our desk by morning? They have the power to do that. Instead, who are they protecting? Every Democrat voted for the files. Let that sink into people's heads. Mm-hmm. Let that sink into MAGA's heads. Oh, guess what? It is. They took their sweaty, smelly, disgusting-looking MAGA red hat off for a second, right? And they let it finally sink in. Every single Democrat, everyone wants the identical thing that they want. They want to see the files unredacted. They want to know what the file says. It's the Republicans, all I think but one, who turn around. But where I get furious, imagine that there aren't any Democrats who have close enough relationships with Republicans that they can turn around and say, you got to join us on this. Your political future rests upon it. The scenario has to be resolved, and you could make the difference. One vote separated. Whether we, the American people, whether Congress, was going to get an unredacted version of the file versus not receiving it. And look which way it went.
Well, they're scared for any number of reasons. So my last question, I think, is the most important question. I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not lose support. We have seen this Teflon shit time and time and time again. So while libtards like me, and perhaps like you, might be getting excited, like, oh, this is the thing.
I'm not.
Okay, so
I'm not excited.
I'm a little. So I'll go out there. I'll put myself out there on that way. But while we're thinking, okay, this could be the thing that has the house of MAGA cards crumbling. Is a civil war going to blow over and he gets away with this too? Or is this truly going to be the thing that really does bring down MAGA?
So I want to bring you back because I'm only basing this off of history. Overturning of Roe versus Wade, the Dobbs decision. What woman in her right mind is going to vote for Donald Trump? Let me take you back even further to 2015. Mexicans are drug addicts, they're murderers, they're drug dealers. Some of them are probably fine people. Hold on. I remember George Stephanopoulos was with me as my guest at that, announcement, the presidential run. He said, it's over. I was like, I don't think so. I'll go one step further, right? You have Nazis walking down the streets in Charlottesville with tiki torches. Jews will not replace us. Then he turns around and he says, there's good people on both sides. Let me be very clear. As the son of a Holocaust survivor, there are no good Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So let me be clear about that one. He overcame that too. We can go on and on. 34 criminal counts.
Sure.
How about civilly convicted of fraud, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of business fraud. E. Jean Carroll, defamation 1, defamation 2. We can go on and on. He has survived all of this. Do I think that this is the end all be all? No, I do not with him. When it comes to him, he defies logic.
Certainly does.
He defies logic. And if history has shown us anything, what it's showing that this could be, as you bring up, Andy, this could be that catalyst, but only if Democrats play it right. And I hate to say it, they're still not playing it right. They just don't understand how to play in Donald Trump's park. They just don't. It's Trump's playground. And until they learn how to play in the playground, Trump is just going to end up deflecting, delaying, until ultimately what? Something new is going to happen. Maybe it'll be a war. Maybe it'll be the end of a war. Maybe it'll be the return of hostages. Maybe it'll be us blowing up Iran. Who knows? But all I know is if history has taught us anything, it's that you can't count Trump out, ever.
You're 100% right, and history is behind you. If I was in Vegas with you right now, I would not be placing my bet. I'd be placing your bet. But there is something different happening here, which will be really interesting to see where it goes. Michael, as always, thanks for coming in the back room. We'll chat with you again soon.
Oh, you mean the kitchen? But yes, definitely. Anytime, Andy. It's always good to see you, my brother.
Where are you? I see a door in a room. Where are you?
Can't tell you.
You're talking like you're in $1 million studio.
No.
Making fun of my kitchen.
I'm in my dining room.
All right, take care. Be good.
Be well, my brother.
This episode of The Back Room was edited and produced by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-edited and co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and co-produced by Jen Hammoud. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Hollander, and our logo was designed by Cricket Langell. And special thanks to Patricia Wind. Please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, and also follow or subscribe. Until next time, keep your eyes on Washington, Hollywood, and your own backyards, and have a great week.